Hello, Jace Fugate here with another session of the Introduction to the Go Programming Language course. Today we're going to be talking about for loops. So loops in general are ways that you can encode, run the same piece of code or same block of code multiple times without having to copy and paste. Loops are great because it gives you a way to dynamically repeat code. It's just a lot more flexible than just copy and paste. Something that's interesting with Go is Go only has one keyword for loops. It just has a for loop. It just has for. It doesn't have a do, it doesn't have a while, it doesn't have a do while, none of that. Just one for statement. And let's go ahead and show you the syntax. And so the full syntax for a for loop has three parts. You initialize a variable, you have a conditional check, and then you have a statement that runs at the end of each iteration. And then after those three statements, you have opening, closing curly braces, and you have some code inside. Here we're just going to print out I is equal to whatever I is. Let's go ahead and run this. As you see here, I've actually already run this code. Let's run it again right here in front of you. We should probably put a new line on the end here to make it a little bit more readable. So there you have it. It prints out I is equal to 0 through 9. So let's run through this code. So the first thing it does is it initializes I to 0. It then checks to see, well, is I less than 10? If that is true, it runs the code block. After the code block, it runs this third statement, which will increment I. And then now check again, is I less than 10? If that's true, it'll run this code block. And then it will run this statement. And it keeps doing that. So the first time I is 0, well, 0 is less than 10, runs this, and now runs this right here. And then it runs the statement, which says now I is equal to 1. So it was 1 less than 10, it runs. Well, then increment it to 2. And that checks again. It does 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And on the 9th run, it checks. It runs this. It increments 9 to 10. And then it says, oh, well, I is less than, or 10 is less than 10. No, it is not less than 10. It skips and jumps through and moves on with the program. Something that's very useful in Go is you don't actually have to have this first statement. If you wanted to, you could just do this. You leave the semicolon there, and then you can just say, and you can initialize your variable, you can do stuff, and then you can then run your loop if you wanted. And that runs just fine. As well, you could pull that statement off completely, so you just have your conditional. When you just have the middle statement or just have the conditional, you don't need the semicolons. So then you can just have your conditional down here, and then you can run this. Same thing happens. Or I guess if you wanted to, you could pop this here, put a semicolon at the end, and then you can do the same thing. And so you don't have to have all three statements directly right after the for. You can break it up if you want. But again, if you're going to have just two of them, it's either going to be the first and second or the second and third. If you have two of them, you have to have the semicolons. If you're just going to do the conditional check, then you don't need to have the semicolons. Something else to note is you do not need parentheses. Some other languages require you to use parentheses, just like if statements. Go, you do not have to do that. So again, for loops are extremely useful, and it's the only way that you can really repeat code in Go. And you can use the same for loop in many different ways. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you again.